Welcome to the Let Go and Be Free podcast, a podcast for those who grew up in an alcoholic or dysfunctional family. I'm your host, Ron Vital, author of the Let Go and Be Free 100 Daily Reflections for Adult Children of Alcoholics series. If you'd like to learn more, feel free to visit letgoandbefree.com. And with that, let's get on with the show. Hello and welcome to this week's show. Wanted to take a break. This week, we have gone through the first 4 steps of Adult Children of Alcoholics, 12 steps. We've gone through step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, and I thought this would be a good time to just kind of take a break, kind of focus on a different topic. One, it would help me with my creative juices just to focus on something different. And then 2, have me kind of walk through some of the challenges that I'm having in real time, real life, something that I thought could help, you as you're listening through your day. So this episode, how to stop worrying all the time. I wanted to kind of break this apart, kind of get a deep dive discussion on why do we do that, different techniques on how to deal with worry, how to stop worrying, and what to do when we're in the moment when, especially if you wake up in the middle of the night and your brain is kind of spinning and you keep thinking of like all the things that you've got on your head. So let's get right into it. This is something that, for me, I do struggle with on a pretty regular basis about worry. And when I break it down, typically there's multiple types of paths with worry. So for example, if I'm going through a really good time, everything is going great, life is wonderful, work is wonderful, family life is wonderful, there is this gnawing thought in the back of my head that basically, whispers, well, something bad is about to happen. It's going to happen soon. Be prepared for, when that bad thing happens. I don't know what it is. I just know that it's coming. And, I start worrying about that. Like, what could it be? And I start thinking, like, what haven't I seen? What can I prepare for? And when that happens, and I would think that many of you out there have struggled with similar thoughts of, you're going through a time where things are good in your life, and then you start worrying about what's going to happen next, like, when the other shoe's going to drop. For me, see if you can identify with this, is that often I have those thoughts because I'm thinking back, part of me is thinking back when I was a kid, and there were circumstances that happened within, my family that were beyond my control, that I would be, having a great time with friends, would come home, and then boom, I'd walk into something I didn't even know what the heck was going on. And my world went from, oh, I'm having a pretty good day, to it's the end of the world. And I can never understand that, as a kid, in that, my life was being pulled in other directions without my say so. Like, I had no control over those circumstances. I could be having a great day at school, I could come home, and then boom, things just exploded, and I just was like, there's fighting in the family, there's stuff going on, there's bad financial situations coming out that I hear about, or just really bad things that would happen. And I began to, I guess, prepare for those times because I just didn't like feeling that my life was out of control. That's one of the things that's really like a trigger for me, is that I want to be prepared as best I can. Because as a kid, I would go in situation thinking everything is wonderful, and then I'd turn around and just be like sucker punched with, a horrible situation, and then get wrapped up, into things and just not know what to do. I felt lost. I felt confused, out of control, worried, stressed out, fearful. Are we going to be able to stay where we're living? Do we have enough money? Don't we have enough money? Is this person leaving? Are people breaking up? Like, it was just chaos. And I think that is the key word, chaos. There was, periods of stability, but then often the chaos would rear its ugly head when I least would be ready for it. And I started detecting those patterns, like, okay, things are going along great. That means something bad's going to happen soon. So what can I do about that? What coping mechanisms can I, utilize and learn to make certain that when the chaos starts again, I'm not going to be caught off guard? And so I think that's where, a lot of my worrying started. Just trying to be prepared for the worst, because you knew the worst was going to be coming at any particular time. You just didn't know when, so you had to be ready and prepared. And that meant control anything I could around me, control that I knew that my circumstances around me that I could control would always be in order. I would go to school, I'd do well at school. I would, I was prompt with, meeting and hanging out with my friends. If I said I was going to do something, I kind of followed through with it. I became very conscientious, and made certain that, prayed a lot at that time in my life, because I was, a young kid and going to church a lot. And I would pray to Mary, I pray to God, I pray all over the place, hoping that life would be well and I would be protected. And unfortunately, that's not the case in life, and that there was a lot of bad things that happened. I wouldn't be having this podcast about, addiction and alcoholism and dysfunction if I didn't go through the hard times as a kid. And I think, when I look back, it wasn't just one moment in time. It was, more than a decade over time of different circumstances, different people, different marriages, things that my brother and I and the family unit, we had to learn to adapt to. And when chaos erupted, we each had our own mechanisms, coping mechanisms to get by. And for me, I threw myself into my studies. I threw myself into trying to be, the best person I could be, like A student, the super responsible person, introverted, quiet, because I was just afraid of, everything around me. I just couldn't figure out what the heck was going on. And with all those thoughts, with everything that was happening, I did discover that imagination and creativity were outlets for me. I could read a book and escape in that world. I could write a book and can escape in that world. So they were my, coping mechanisms of, I've got this ability to write and be creative. What if I use that and that could help me? It didn't solve the problems, but at least it helped me at that time to get through the difficult periods. But I still worried, a lot. Worried about, was my mom's marriage going to stay together? Would we, when a person lost their job, would we have enough money to pay the bills? Did we have to move back in, with my grandparents? All kinds of stress and worry that were going all through, through my life. And I look at that now as an adult and realize that I didn't have control in a lot of aspects of my life, and there wasn't the stability that I had wanted and I hoped for. And because of that, I started, worrying and thinking that the worry was going to help me mentally prepare for the worst. But really what it only did was it got me caught in a cycle of stress, anxiety, panic, fear, and they would just kind of feed off on each other. So when I look at that, I had a couple options as a kid. Option one was control what I could control, and I did that. I could be good at school. I could say something and be true to my word. I could follow through. I could escape in books, in my writings and hanging out with my friends. But I didn't learn healthy mechanisms on how to deal with worry. I used the worry and control to kind of act as a barrier against the chaos. That if chaos erupted, then I'd be like, okay, let me go into crisis mode. Crisis mode meant I need to do these particular things, and I got really good at that. Being hyper responsible, making certain that I'd read the emotions in the room. I became really good at reading people and understanding, like, okay, this person just rolled their eyes or looked a certain way, that meant that an argument was going to go this way or that way. Or listening and realizing that, the arguing that was taking place in the other room meant there would be a crest, a crash in the argument soon. And then my mom would come to us and we'd, talk to my brother and I, and then, we'd hear what was going on, and then we would be prepared for what was next. Like, there was these cycles that just would happen. And I became really good at riding those waves of chaos. Unfortunately, as an adult, having that stress and worry all the time did not necessarily serve me well, as I got older. Because when you worry all the time, you're wasting energy and time, and it's not solving any problems. Worrying, just trying to give an example. Worrying that I'm going to lose my job because of X, Y, or Z. Well, if that's going to happen, if I'm going to lose a job because budget cuts or, whatever, political situations, whatever it is, I can't control that. But the aspect of not being able to control something would actually increase my worry. And I would, get into that cycle of like, I need to worry more now. And I would talk about it, perseverate on it. Talk to a best friend, talk to my spouse, talk to friends, talk to my coworkers. Oh my God, what if we lose my job? What if we're all going to get fired? What if this? What if that? I've heard rumblings. Have you heard any rumblings? What have you heard? That does nothing to solve the problem. So what I realized is, one, I had to find techniques and skills to deal with worry, because if I was worrying all the time, I wasn't going to be able to perform at my best. I was going to be paralyzed, because if you worry all the time, you're not getting things done. You're just basically trapped. Though you might be thinking that the worry is going to help you because you're kind of, getting the worry off your mind. But there comes a point where you need to kind of cut that off and then decide some sort of action. So I'll share a more personal story. When I was younger and I was in college, and been in a relationship, and it was a rocky one. And it was one where, we'd be madly in love, and then there'd be a big argument, and then I'd be stressed out and worry, oh my God, is this the end? Are we going to break up? And then we would break up, because oftentimes I was creating so much stress. Like, are you going to break up with me? This happened and that happened, and we'd argue more, and it was this cycle of dysfunction. And we'd break up, and then we get back together again. And the act of breaking up and then worrying, I would be thinking constantly, like 24/7. Oh my God, are we going to get back together? We get back together. Oh no, are we going to break up? When are we going to break up? There was these like patterns that I realized of like, okay, I'm now back together with her. But if I keep acting a certain way, we're going to get into another big argument, and then we're going to break up again. And that perseverating and that worry, constant, what I realized, in talking about this in therapy, is that I needed to exercise like basically my muscle brain, and what I mean by that is when I realize that I get into a period of, incessant worry, one of the ways that I've learned over time to overcome that is to allow myself a set amount of time to worry or think about whatever the situation is as much as I want. Let's say I'll just make up a number, 5 minutes. So at the end of the 5 minutes, then I'd say, enough of the worrying. I need to move on to something else and start doing something else. And then when the worry would come back again, I would say, okay, this time I'm only going to worry 3 minutes or something like that. And then do that and then get back to whatever I was doing. And each time that I was struggling with worry, I'd keep bringing the amount of time like less and less until I was able to get a handle on it and say, okay, now my brain is shifted elsewhere. I'm going to move on. And I'll be perfectly honest with you. This was not easy to do, and I failed miserably when I first started this. So that was around the time that I started going to the adult children of alcoholic meetings and started hearing similar stories of people dealing with worry and fear and panic attacks and anxiety and all kinds of stress. And for me, the serenity prayer, God grant me the serenity to accept the things, I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. That prayer basically saved me. And what I mean by that is it was a way for me, and again, if you're not religious, you could literally just take the word God out of it. The whole premise of the those sentences is understanding what you can control and what you can't control. And worry is often centered around control. And when you're worrying about things you can't control, oh my God, is she going to break up with me? Oh my God, I'm going to lose my job because of XYZ. The economy's bad. They're making cuts. They're this or that. There's things that I can control, and there's things that I can't control in life. And when I'd get into that worry mode, I literally just would recite in my head the Serenity Prayer again and again and again, and I'd use it as a means of parsing out what could I control and what I couldn't control. Is she gonna break up with me? If I hadn't done anything, quote unquote wrong, and we're not arguing, then if she decided to break up with me, there's nothing I can do about that. She's decided to break up with me. I can talk about it with her. If it didn't work out, then I move on. But I didn't have that foundation of self-assurance, self-confidence, and self-esteem when I was like 20 and 21. I was a wreck and a mess. And I felt that I needed to be in a relationship because that was going to save me. And I saw myself as like broken, was with someone who had her own challenges, and that together, when we worked together, we'd be perfect and whole and love and everything would be wonderful. Well, you know how that worked out. It didn't. And, when I think of that time and how stressed out I was just like a worry ward, constantly stressed out. But when I started using the Serenity Prayer, again, you can take the God part out of it. It is really helping you to understand the boundary line between what you can control in your own life and what you cannot control. We cannot control other people. We cannot control, the future. We can't control many things in our lives. What we do have control of, it's pretty straightforward. How are we going to take care of ourselves? How do we treat others? You know, what type of job do we want to do? You know, and what I mean by that is if you're stressed out and you're worrying about, am I going to get laid off? Am I this or that? Then you could start looking for another job. You could start paving the way for a different future for yourself. It's possible. If you're stressed out about your relationship, you can do something about it. You can go to therapy. You can go to an adult children of alcoholics meeting. You can talk to a friend. You can start journaling. There are positive things, actions that you can do instead of worrying like I used to 24/7. Worry, 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 worry. And it never got me anywhere. But once I started going to therapy, once I started going to adult children of alcoholic meetings, I found avenues to, one, in a healthy way, express what I was feeling and how to process that. And then two, learned healthy skills to deal with the problems in my life. Instead of just worrying, I was able to say, I can write down in a journal how I feel every day. All my worries, all my fears, all my hopes, my dreams. And then I can say, I need to let this go. I need to move on, and I'm going to do these things. I'm going to go to work. I'm going to go to school. I'm going to do these active things to help myself instead of be sitting somewhere and then my brain was perseverating, on the worry and the fear. That just didn't do anything to help me when I just stressed all the time and was worried all the time. So, in my brain, there was the couple techniques to help me. One, give yourself a certain amount of time to worry whatever's on your mind, and then you cut that off, and then you start doing something else. Go on with your day. And then when you feel that rise of stress again, you give yourself a little bit more time, but less time, and kind of work that down. And I had moments when totally failed with that. I needed other skills, other things to help me. And what that was, things like deep breathing with meditation, purposefully taking a moment to clench my fists as hard as I could and then slowly breathe in through my nose. I would then hold it and then slowly release my hands and then exhale slowly. And that action, repeating that several times through different parts of my body, clench my feet, clench, my mouth, clench my eyeballs really tight, my eyes really tight. Going through the entire body and doing that breathing technique was a physical way for me to say, I am in control of my body. It is my body. I feel the stress. I feel the worry. I'm going to accept that I feel that way, but this is a skill that I can use to release that stress and remind myself that I'm not trapped in that cycle of worry all the time. And that was extremely helpful. And again, it was a simple thing like I was able to do. It wasn't like I had to learn a class or anything, or, I started taking these different skills and then putting them together as a toolkit to help me when things got really complicated and difficult. I was like, if I'm stressed out, I can do the technique of worry for a certain amount of time and then let it go and then come back again. Instead of 5 minutes, then I'm going to do 2 minutes. Instead of 2 minutes, I'm going to do 1 minute. And then sometimes that worked. And then other times I was like, you know what? I'm going to write down what I feel. I'm just going to sit down at a computer or get a piece of paper, write whatever I want, and then I'm not even going to save it. I'm just going to like symbolically excise it, get it out of me. Take the paper, tear it up, throw it in the trash, write on the computer, keep my eyes closed, write everything was on my brain, freestyle writing. When I'm finished, shut it off, let it go away. And that act of release helped me realize that, hey, this is another good skill to help me when I'm feeling worry and stressed out. And then meditation, breathing techniques, another skill that I added to my toolkit. I found personally that like physical work, such as cleaning or gardening, or walking or running, also were ways for me to help deal with worry. So over time, I was able to take these separate set of skills and again put them into, this like mental toolkit. And I would say, okay, when I'm stressed out, these are the things that I can use to help me. These are the things that work to basically allow me to let go of the worry. And then overlay them on basic things such as sleep right, eat right, take time to have some fun, like laugh, enjoy life instead of worrying all the time and being stressed out. So I was able to see patterns of like, oh, everything's going great. And then let's say there's rumors of layoffs at work. And if that were to happen, I'd start stressing out. And then I'd be like, okay, what can I do to help myself here? Instead of just wasting, the entire day worrying, I'm like, I'm going to do the best job that I can. Maybe I can talk to my manager and say, I hear that there's possible layoffs. Is that true? Yes or no? We don't know. Yes, it is. No, it's not true. Whatever that answer is, that would then give me a path of forward, going forward. What can I control? I've got some answers, or it's ambiguous. I can decide, stick it out and just keep moving forward, or I can start networking and figure out maybe I want another job and start looking into that. So that way, if I am, like if I were to lose that job, then I have a plan and a path for moving forward. And often with problems in life, they don't typically just happen. Yes, there are situations, like horrible situations. Someone passes away, someone is really sick, and it might come out of the blue. There's accidents. Even in those times where chaos erupts in your life, having these skills, these tools will help you feel calmer and more at peace instead of allowing the worry to basically control your life. And what's happening is that for me, I then get back into that. I feel like a little kid again. The world around me is out of control. I don't have any control. So I'm just going to stress about this and get caught in a cycle of dysfunction. Well, to break that dysfunction, I listed out a couple skills that I've learned for my toolkit to help me. And that's something that I hope will be helpful for you as well. So I wanted to take this apart, talk about worry. It's something that I struggle with. And I hope that you can identify and times that you worry in your life as well. And just to think, a lot of times worry is about control, lack of it. And to think about what we can control and what we can't control, and then quickly realign our brain, focusing on the things that we can control while using either mental exercises, physical, breathing exercise, meditation, and then journal writing, therapy, or adult children of alcoholic meetings. All those skills all put together is a really powerful set of tools that could help you deal with worry. So again, I hope this has been helpful. I know, I don't think I'd be where I am today if I hadn't learned these various skills. I think I'd be still stressed out and just a wreck. So thankfully, I did discover these skills through therapy, through ACOA meetings, self-help books, talking with friends, and I built this up over time. It does take time. So again, thank you so much for listening and tuning in. I appreciate it. If you want to learn more, you can visit letgoandbefree.com. Feel free to rate the podcast and come back again. Thank you so much, and be well.